Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such a great place to live, work, and play. It is Friday, so we're going to be visiting with my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. So without any further ado, let's bring Jeff in and say good morning. How are you doing, buddy?
Good morning, Ricky. I'm doing great. It's we're getting to the dog days of summer. Spring's over.
Yeah, I know it. I know it is. Hey, we chatted a little bit about this off the air before we started the show, but one of the awards that I enjoyed doing when I was publisher of the Times-Picayune was the Loving Cup Award, which is given to sort of like we do leadership awards here in coastal Mississippi, but this is like the top leadership award. This is the person who is most deserving of their work in the community for the past year, or maybe even through their lifetime, but they're the ones who was recognized that year. And I was really pleased to see that Miss Benson recently received the award. You think back about it, you probably should have given it to her some time ago, because she's been so committed to the community for so long. But it was great seeing the videos at NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and also at the Saints website. It seemed to be an incredibly well orchestrated event, and you could see that she was just thrilled to death to get it.
Yeah, it was a great event Monday night at the Saints indoor facility. Ricky, you've delivered those speeches before and given out that award. It's a big deal here in New Orleans. It's a great honor for her, and it meant a lot to her. And there was a great turnout from the governor all the way down to the executives with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. Willie Green was there, David Griffin, Mickey Loomis. Great turnout, and she definitely was a deserving recipient.
There's no doubt. Hey, before we get on what's the latest in your head and what's happening in the professional sports scene, I have a friend of mine. His name is Joshua Blankenship, and he's an artist that somewhere along the way I just got introduced to him. And we sort of struck up a friendship, and I've kind of mentored him on some approaches that he could take with his approach to art and to marketing his art, et cetera, with social media, et cetera. And he's an extraordinarily talented young man. But he won an opportunity to move from his place in Tennessee to Kingston, North Carolina, which is where Brandon Ingram is from, who, as you know, all-star player for the Pelicans. And one of the things he did is I'm going to show you a picture of it. I'll just kind of hold it up. He drew a picture of Brandon and kind of honoring Kingston and where he's from, et cetera. And it got posted on social media. Brandon's father saw it and immediately said, "I'm buying it." Well, then Brandon then goes to Kingston. Here's a picture of him with the photo, with the picture, and my artist friend. Brandon surprises his mother there for Mother's Day, and they invite Joshua over to the house to bring the painting and to meet Brandon, and he posted about the experience, and he said Brandon Ingram is one of the nicest people he's ever met. He's had the opportunity. He's done other sports guys along the way, but he was particularly touched by Brandon Ingram. He said just super laid back and not a big ego guy and all that. You know him pretty well too. It's great to see sort of some behind the scenes on some of these guys, isn't it?
Yeah, everything you hear about Brandon Ingram is positive. I mean, the Pelicans organization loves him. I think they put him pretty much on a pedestal alongside C.J. McCollum as the faces of the franchise right now until they can get Zion Williamson back in the fold. But everything you hear about him behind the scenes, great leader, great young man, very laid back, kind of typical North Carolina kid, great family. So it doesn't surprise me how your friend had that interaction with him. It falls in line with everything I've heard.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Okay, so the dust is starting to settle a little bit on all these moves the Saints have made, but you expect any other moves to be made here soon?
I think they're pretty much done. I mean, there could be a couple more roster additions, maybe a veteran running back as a backup plan. It sounds like Jarvis Landry, who they were pursuing, the wide receiver, former LSU star, is in negotiations with Baltimore. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but Baltimore has kind of emerged as a front runner for him. But I do think the Saints would still like to consider him at the right price.
Yeah.
That's the problem right now. The Saints very much are being frugal this offseason. So anybody they bring in is going to be close to the minimum salary after doing Tyrann Mathieu. I think they're pretty much done for any other additions going forward.
Well, I had the opportunity to read at NOLA.com a little bit more clarity about the Tyrann Mathieu contract. You said you looked forward to understanding it a little bit better. Seemed to be a good price. Looks like some big guaranteed money. But what's your take on the contract now that you've had an opportunity to reflect about it?
Well, all these contracts, you really have to get the details and dig into them. The early reports, Ricky, the way this league works, almost all of it's leaked by the agents. And the agents, of course, are in business to attract future clients. So they want that initial report to look as favorable to them and their client as possible. So often, though, it's not accurate. The information is really the devil's in the details. And so, like Tyrann Mathieu's deal is announced as a 3-year, $33 million deal, which is technically accurate, but from the team's point of view, it's really more of a 2-year deal with about $18.5 million. That's what's guaranteed to Tyrann Mathieu in the first 2 years. Now, it may be a third year. If he plays lights out the next 2 years, the Saints will probably keep him for that third year, and it will end up being a $33 million deal. But there's an opportunity when the money's not guaranteed beyond the first 2 years, the Saints can easily walk away, release him, and not have any repercussions for the cap. And there's going to be no salary cap implications. So that's how you look at it from a league point of view. It's really more of a 2-year deal with a third option for the team. Very similar to some of the stuff we saw in the deals with Jameis Winston, where it was announced as a longer-term deal, and really it's a one-year deal. I mean, the Saints could walk away after next season if they don't like what they see or it's not working out, but it's announced as a longer, more lucrative deal.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked about the Tyrann Mathieu story and why it's so significant and all that last week. There's been some news stories that have come out even since then with more detailed conversations with Tyrann, but he, not to overplay it because we did discuss it pretty good last week, but the more you hear him talk about the role he wants to play, not just to be a leader on the Saints, he feels like he's at he's playing at his best level, but also the role he wants to play in the community to inspire people. And one of the reasons he didn't come back here is because, sort of that negative, that negative thing that he was really, he was working through his own personal issues. And now that he's mature and has done that, he wants to play a role in inspiring young people in the city. And, it seems that he's really got his head straight as it relates to the role he's going to play on the team and the role he wants to play in the community. And that's awesome to see, isn't it?
Look, Ricky, I think he's going to have an enormous impact here in New Orleans. I mean, he's going to reach, a demographic that, frankly, a lot of people can't reach. Even New Orleans Saints can't reach. And he's embracing that role. He is a New Orleanian. He's one of us over here. And he comes from, a community that's desperate for role models. And I think the fact that he's come back with his eyes wide open to that and it wants to make a difference is a tremendous story. And I think he can make a huge difference here. And I think he understands that. And that's important. It's important for people. I know some of the players, some of the people I've talked to in the community said, like, we would have loved to have had a Tyrann Mathieu for us back when we were growing up in those neighborhoods. But even the Saints players didn't come into the neighborhoods there. Well, Tyrann Mathieu's from those neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And he's going to continue to be in those neighborhoods. He's got family in those neighborhoods. So to me, it's really a remarkable story. He would not have been a good fit here right after LSU. He said that. He was vulnerable personally. But now, where he's at in his life now, his maturity, I think it's the perfect time for him to make a homecoming.
Well, obviously, as part of the editorial board efforts while I was there, part of the responsibilities of the Times-Picayune and NOLA.com while I was there, the very complicated situation that exists in New Orleans today. Over 50% of African American men are unemployed, and the pandemic put that on steroids. And you've got generational challenges there. My relationship with Mitch Landrieu helped me to understand that so many of these young people who are involved in these more neighborhood-like gangs, it's not like Crips and Blood. They're like neighborhood-level gangs with guns and ammunition they didn't have years ago. It's a very, very difficult situation, and most of those young people are incredibly scared. I think they will be positively impacted and inspired by what Tyrann Mathieu brings to the table. And I'll mention one more thing about that on the other side, but when we continue the conversation with Jeff Duncan after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend Jeff Duncan from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and we're talking about the Saints, and in particular, we're talking about Tyrann Mathieu. And we won't overdo this, but simply the point is that in New Orleans, there's generational poverty. There's significant issues with violence. Most of the kids who were raised in those neighborhoods, they get sucked into a sort of a violent world when really what they want is a way out, and they're scared. I mean, that's the one thing I remember so well about what Mitch Landrieu told me, and that is that so many of the young people he talked to who are involved in violent situations are really scared to death. They're just trying to find a way to survive. And having a role model like Tyrann I agree with you. I think it's going to it could change people's lives. And he's the right guy at the right moment. Any last words about that before we move on?
Well, I think most important what he said that I think is really an important message to be heard is that you don't have to be a professional athlete to get out. And I think that's important. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu are 1 in a million. I mean, the odds are stacked against you to make it in the NFL. You should continue to have big dreams and strive for your goals. But there's other ways, maybe more reasonable, realistic ways to make something of your life. And he wants to get that message across because it's not just being a rapper or being an NFL player. That shouldn't be the only goals. And so I love to hear that from him.
I do too, man. It's going to be so important, actually. I was going to say fun, but more important, it'd be fun to watch him play. But more importantly, watching his contribution back to the community, his leadership in that way, is going to touch a lot of people, not just in New Orleans, but really around the entire United States. So with that said, let's move over. What you got to say about the schedule?
Well, look, the schedule came out on Thursday. That's what it's kind of like Christmas in May for NFL fans and Saints fans. Big opening game at Atlanta. The longtime rivals. Saints opened the season where they ended the 2021 season, the same place in Atlanta. That happens to be where Dennis Allen started his NFL coaching career. So there's lots of subplots. Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback in Atlanta probably, and that he was the number 2 pick in the 2015 draft behind Jameis Winston, who was the number 1 pick. So there's lots of good subplots in that. I think more than anything else, Ricky, we see a very kind of manageable opening stretch of the season. You open up at Atlanta, then you play the Bucs at home, the home opener against the Tampa Bay Bucs. So, that'll be a big game, obviously. Tom Brady coming back into the Dome, that big rivalry. Then you go to Carolina, another manageable game, then overseas to London, which makes sense. You cut off the travel time when you travel from Charlotte directly over across the pond. Come back home to play Seattle. Then you get the Bengals at home. Joe Burrow coming back to the Superdome where he won the national title week 6. But listen to this stretch, Ricky. Started with that game in week 6. The Cincinnati Bengals, then at Arizona on Thursday Night Football, a playoff team. Back home, Las Vegas Raiders in the Dome, playoff team. Then also Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens, always tough team. At Pittsburgh, playoff team. The Rams, Super Bowl champion, back in the Dome, playoff team. And then at San Francisco, playoff team. At Tampa Bay, playoff team. That's a brutal stretch. 7 I think it's 50 days, 8 games, 7 playoff teams. That the Saints are going to have to start strong because the middle of this schedule is very difficult.
Well, you said it before, but we'll remind people in case they missed it that one of the big changes that Dennis Allen made as to how this team is going to prepare themselves physically. They made some big changes in the way that they're doing their off-season workouts and the way that they're hopefully preparing themselves to maybe reduce the number of injuries that they've had. They got decimated last year. What you hearing about that these days?
Well, I mean, the players all love the new strength and conditioning coach. They've embraced this new program. It's very progressive, very forward-thinking, very scientific, a lot of analytics involved. They were kind of on the cutting edge. That was a big emphasis for Dennis Allen, one of the first big moves he made. And the guy, Coach Shea is the new strength and conditioning coordinator. He came from the University of Alabama, where he worked with Nick Saban. And he got recommended to the Saints by Michael Thomas. So I think it's interesting that Michael Thomas was the guy that recommended this coach. And once they interviewed and hit it off, I think it's going to be a big bonus for the Saints because players talk. And when they find out the Saints are on the cutting edge of, strength and conditioning, health, nutrition, all those things, it's only going to continue to attract top players here.
Rookie clash, both those drafted and undrafted free agents, they come together. And tell me about what the sort of schedule is going to be over the next few weeks for the Saints.
Well, today, Friday, will be the first day the rookies go on the practice field for rookie mini camp. This is the introduction to pro football for these guys. Not only the draft picks, but all the undrafted players. You've got players coming in for tryouts on a tryout basis. So there'll probably be, I'm just guessing, 40 to 50 rookies on the field Friday for two-a-days, Saturday for two-a-days, and then they'll have a practice Sunday. And then we'll get back to on-the-field activities with OTAs in the weeks ahead where the rest of the veterans report and join the team. So about the next month or so, we'll have some on-field, off-season practices. So it's our first chance to see the rookies, Chris Olave, Trevor Penning. I've got a column that's going to be really interesting, I think, on this rookie punter they brought in. They didn't draft a punter, of course. They have Blake Gillikin, but the punter they're bringing in, Daniel Whalen, Cal Davis, got a great backstory. Born and raised in Ireland. He's trying to become the first Irishman to make it in the NFL since 1985, Ricky. So,
wow,
long time, and got all Ireland following his path here. He's got his work cut out for him to make the roster here. I'd be surprised if he beats out Blake Gillikin, who had a great year last year. But I think he'll get a chance to punt, put his work on tape, and probably make it somewhere else in the NFL because really talented kid.
Well, it looks like, unless you know something I don't know, we're not going to go into the OTAs and then ultimately to, getting ready for the season with any holdouts. I mean, it looks like the Saints have got everybody under contract and everything's settled. Was that where they are?
Yeah, well, no contract problems. I think there could be some guys like Blake Gillikin, the punter I mentioned. I don't know. He's got some kind of injury. We don't know and determine what it is or what it is holding back. He's not going to be punting. I'm not sure if Mike Thomas will be on the field. He's still recovering and rehabbing from his off-season ankle surgery. So there's going to be players like that might not participate, but not because of any kind of contract mess.
Yeah. Is there any, again, it's been kind of quiet because you had this intense time, obviously, during and just following the draft, but any other buzz going on?
No, not really. This is when it gets quiet. I mean, really, the league goes kind of dark in June and July, but we will have mini camps in June. So it'll be our first chance to visit with some of the players. But really, the schedule is a big deal because, as you know, we're in football country. This is where people plan their social calendars. This is where you find out if your best friend that scheduled his fall wedding did it on the same weekend as a huge Saints game, and you can get mad at him or her. So, I mean, this is what my experience has been. This day is a huge day for people because now they can plan. They can figure out what road trips they want to go to, which games they need to come to and get hotel rooms in New Orleans. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that's on hold until the schedule comes out because so many people plan their fall itineraries around the NFL and the Saints.
Hey, we're coming to the end, but real quick, Kentucky Derby, you're a horse racing aficionado. Were you blown away by that?
Oh, yeah. One of the more remarkable stories I've ever seen. I mean, one of the biggest, if not the biggest upset I've experienced. What a great story, though. I thought NBC nailed it in their coverage. They could not have prepared for that, and they winged it, and I thought did a remarkable job in their coverage.
What's interesting about it is I happen to know a lot of people who are friends of mine some from the media industry, some just through leading in the community I've gotten close to. But the number of my friends, throughout the state of Mississippi and the Southeast who were there and posting about it, I think everyone will realize they just witnessed something historic.
Yeah, 80-1. The horse was entered in the race the day before. Got in on the also eligible list. And the ratings were through the roof. They were sky high. So people obviously tuned in. It's a great story. I don't know if Rich Strike will have a chance in the Preakness against Epicenter. That was my only downside to it, was the Louisiana Derby champion who I'd written about Epicenter looked like he was going to win.
Yeah.
In the first in a long time. So it was kind of heartbreaking, but a great story for horse racing.
What was so fascinating. For people who don't know what we're talking about, do a search on this past Kentucky Derby if you missed it, and just understand what happened there and how much of a long shot what happened there really was. Anyway, this has been Jeff Duncan, my friend from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. It's been great to catch up with you, buddy. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Take care, Ricky. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much, Jeff. When we come back, we have Lieutenant Mark Schlum from the CB base. We'll see you after this.